Absolutely.
24. Oh, that's the proclamation. Okay.
Are we
Right.
ready?
That's right.
Okay. Welcome to the Ellensburg City Council meeting of November 6th. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Adam. Adam did it last time. Sarah, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Or I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk please take the roll?
Beauchamp.
here.
Elliott.
Here.
Goodlow. Here. Lowquist. Here. David Miller.
Here.
Monica Miller.
Here.
Wynn.
Here.
Thank you. We have a long agenda and we are still adjusting to the time change, but I want to begin with a statement. And this is on, that's very loud and
Is it?
reverberating.
Sorry.
Okay, better. A statement regarding Reed Park planning and the update and the parking on Craigs Hill. So just 4 plans were presented at the open house on October 18th. And based on feedback and early survey responses, the preferred plan, according to public response, is closest to the revised option A. Staff and the consultant are refining that plan to enhance parking and site flow, shift the restroom location, and help folks understand the traffic calming and tree placement configuration near the viewpoint. A revised plan will be made public and reviewed by the Parks and Recreation Commission soon. In the meantime, I'd like to address some rumors that are circulating in the community and on social media. The city has no interest in putting the American Legion out of business or owning that building. We value our veterans' service to our country, and we want the Legion and all the other businesses and service organizations in Ellensburg to live long and prosper. In fact, we have continued to redesign the park plan to achieve no net loss of historical parking for the Legion customers. The city recognizes the American Legion is a historic private landowner within the park, and as such, it's in a unique position as it has no alternative nearby for obtaining any additional parking. And that overflow parking from the Legion events also impacts nearby residences and neighborhoods. So that's an objective for the park plan. In the near term, there is a need to address the fire lane access to the American Legion facility. This cannot wait until the park plan is adopted. Taking no action to remedy the known fire lane access issue is not an option because of the fire risk it creates for the Legion, nearby homeowners, and the area in general. City representatives have met with Legion representatives to find a reasonable short-term solution that minimizes the loss of parking due to the fire lane enforcement. We hope to meet again soon to discuss another alternative. The city's only motivation throughout this entire process has been to better serve the community and to provide the best and safest park facility possible. Okay, thank you for indulging that. So we have 2 proclamations tonight. The Native American Heritage Month. Is Christy Gilchrist here? Christy, would you like to come to the lectern? Christy is the Director of Research and Sponsored Programs and American Indian Studies Program at CW. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Native American Heritage Month, November 2023. Whereas in 1990, President George H.W. Bush declared the month of November as National Native American Heritage Month. And whereas the United States currently recognizes 574 American Indian and Alaska Native tribes, of which 29 are located in Washington state. And whereas, as the first to live in the land, Native Americans and their traditions and values inspired and continue to inspire the ideals of self-governance, determination, and care for the earth. And whereas the Confederated Tribes and Bands of the Yakama Nation settled on approximately 10 million acres of land forming what is now known as Central Washington State. And whereas the city of Ellensburg recognizes and honors the descendants, living or not, of all Native nations residing herein and contributing to the strength and vibrance of a diverse community. And whereas the city of Ellensburg adopted a land acknowledgement statement in 2022, recognizing the land on which we are located as ceded land of the Yakama Nation. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Ellensburg does hereby proclaim November 2023 as Native American Heritage Month in Ellensburg and asks all residents to join in this observance by building bridges of understanding and friendship with the members of the Yakama Nation and all of our Native American neighbors. Signed this 6th day of November 2023.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Our next proclamation is for Veterans Day. Adam, would you like to read? Page 25.
Veterans Day Proclamation. Whereas in 1954, President Dwight D. Eisenhower first proclaimed November 11th as Veterans Day, calling on Americans to solemnly remember the sacrifices of those who have fought and valiantly on the seas, in the airs, and on foreign shores to preserve our heritage and freedom. And whereas President Eisenhower asked Americans to commit ourselves to the task of promoting peace so that our veterans' efforts shall not be in vain. And whereas the members of our armed forces continue to be an inspiration for all of us through their demonstration of courage, leadership, and commitment in service of our community and country. And whereas communities across the nation participate in Operation Green Light for veterans to shine a green light on November 11th to honor the service and sacrifice of veterans. And whereas the greatest acknowledgement of our freedom is to honor our armed forces veterans who have sacrificed and in many instances pay the ultimate price for our freedom. Now, therefore, the City Council of City of Ellensburg proudly joins Kittitas County and the rest of the nation to shine a green light on City Hall on November 11th and to salute and give special honor and recognition to those who have served us in our armed forces and encourage all residents to promote peace. Dated this 6th day of November, 2023.
Thank you. The next agenda item is 3A, the Rodeo Board 100-year update. Mr. Jensvold.
Thank you, Mayor Lilquist, council members, city manager. I'm going to say this, Survey. I'm sorry. My name is Carl Jensvold. I am president of the 2024 Ellensburg Rodeo Board. On behalf of the 17 volunteer directors, it's my pleasure to get to speak with you tonight. We wanted to share some highlights about our 100th year. It was the most successful rodeo we've had in our history, and we have a long history. We had a pretty big year. We set attendance records, including the biggest Friday night Patriot Night crowd and Championship Monday, which resulted in over 5,000 additional people being in Ellensburg over Labor Day weekend. So we saw the 2 years of planning a great success, but a lot of it was partnership with not only other groups, but the city council who went above and beyond in supporting the rodeo. The entire community helped us pull this off, and we're forever grateful. Our volunteer groups, including the Top Hands, the Posse, our arena help, and countless community volunteers made it possible. The water tower mural was a huge success. Not only did our fans get to enjoy it, but it was shared across the country on the Cowboy Channel every day. So the exposure that Ellensburg received, not just from our rodeo, but from the town itself, was tremendous. Our friendship with the Yakima Nation was expanded this year. It was the largest showing we've had in many, many years. We continue to honor them because the reason that the rodeo exists is for the land that they gave us and where we still exist today. We're already preparing for the 101st rodeo. It's going to be tough to top this one, but we're excited and we plan on doing that. The Yakima Nation reminds us whenever we meet with them that the reason that we plan is for the future, but it's not for tomorrow. It's for our children and it's for our children's children. And the reason that that relationship is so strong is we've been able to adopt that same message. And that's the reason that the rodeo is able to be so successful over all these years. We thank you for your continued support of our event, including the future of our event, which is critical to the success of not only our event, but of Labor Day weekend in Ellensburg. So it's my honor to present the City Council with a copy of our 100-year book, which is signed by Mike Allen, who updated it from the 75-year book that John Letka had written, as well as a framed 100-year poster of the Alfred Road.
Nice. Thank you. We'll have to find a prominent place for that. Council, we are at approval of the agenda.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Consent agenda is before you.
Madam Mayor, I move consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. There are no petitions, protests, and communications, so we are at citizen comment on non-agenda issues. This is a time for audience members or anyone online to speak to the council for 3 minutes. You're cautioned not to engage in conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting. And you may not identify yourself as candidates for public office or make statements which or assist or discuss a campaign. And our council rules provide that no action will be taken by the council at the meeting that the subject is first introduced. So we have Jeff Whitman.
Hi, my name is Jeff Whitman, 2104 North Park Lane Avenue. I'm the past commander of the American Legion. I spent 14 and a half years up there working my tail off to keep that place. So I've just got several suggestions here. Number one, you could easily put your fire lane up there if you took the bollards out in the cable, because that's why people park the way they do, because if you open your door, you're into the cable. And then there's gravel beyond the bollards, where you'd gain at least 6 feet without doing anything up there toward a fire lane. So consider that. The other thing, I've mentioned this for about the last 15 years, Sue Parks, and I never got an answer back. The one tree up there that's 95% dead, how that's never broken and come down on a car or an individual, I'm still just mesmerized by that. Because if you went up and look at the tree, there's one live limb left on the tree, and it's the one right by the drinking fountain. The other thing I asked at a meeting sometime back about a water meter that isn't on our physical property, and it got moved years ago as a temporary basis. We can't get it moved back. And I've asked a number of times, a number of different people, why we can't get that done. Because I think code says your water meter has to be on your physical property. Ours is on the other side of the park. That's where it got moved to from our building. Okay. Try to get through this quickly. I met years ago with the neighbors up there when a lot of the concerns were brought forth, and we met with the Parks Department and the Police Department, and really nothing much came from it. We asked for speed bumps then. No, couldn't do that. But as far as safety, and to give you an example of why I get uptight about some of the safety stuff here, I live on Park Lane in Helena, right on the corner. Since the city redid Helen Street a couple of years ago, and we got all those nice sidewalks up there now, they don't allow any parking on Helen Street from Water Street to Walnut. And I guarantee you, at least a half a dozen times a day, somebody goes up that street at 50, 60 miles an hour by my house in a block. So you want to talk about safety? There's kids on that street, pets on that street, all kinds of stuff. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Penny Whitman.
Thank you for giving me this time. My name is Penny Whitman. I live at 2104 North Park Lane Avenue. I'd like to take just a couple minutes to read some things. And I'll start with a statement from one of the council members out of the voter pamphlet. I believe the city council members must listen to the community and act in the long-term interest of Ellensburg regardless of their personal preference. And another one wrote, I look forward to continuing to serve the Ellensburg community as an elected city council member. I promise to continue to approach each situation with an open mind and clear and engage and work with a wide range of community members and partners. So what I would like to say is I am here as a representative, and I'm here to make sure our community knows what's happening on Craig's Hill. Yes, Reed Park. People we have talked to would like to see a walkway down the center of the park. That way no one is by either side of the road walking with children that can step out off of a sidewalk. That's a great spot. If they want to dart out, we've got a few feet to spot them. The other thing I'd like to see is speed bumps. That will slow everybody down. It's not just kids that go through there too fast. And remove the cables so we can open our doors. We can hear the cable was there. We heard the cable was there to keep cars out of the park. Well, there's nothing on the other side, and kids have already been in that park driving. Leave our view alone. We are a business. We have paid lights, water, sewer, and taxes to the city forever. We work hard to keep our business for our veterans. This business is for those veterans that did not come home and the ones that did who fought for our freedom. We need the parking for our business to continue to serve our veterans. Thank you.
Thank you. The sound is fuzzy. Yeah. Okay.
I also asked her to turn it up because there was some complaints before of not being able to hear us in the back.
Okay. Okay. So if you're getting some fuzz when you speak, back away a little bit, please. Cheryl Chance.
My name is Cheryl Chance. I appreciate the opportunity to address Mayor Lilquist, the council, Terry, Heidi, and Beth. I noticed a few discrepancies in the legal ads of the Daily Record for big call number 23-18, which is Unity Park. The legal notices were printed Tuesday, October 31st, and then again Thursday, November 2nd, only 2 days apart. According to RCW 65.16, It says the publication of legal notices required by law or by an order of judge or court to be published in a newspaper once each week for a specified number of weeks shall be made on the day of each week in which newspaper is published. The language of this act appears in 1941 codified, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so the other thing that I noticed in the bid call in both papers, Tuesday, Thursday, it says that the city bid call number is 23-18. However, it says when you look on lines 6 and 7, Unity Park bid call number 2023-12. So which is it? Is it 2023-18 or is it 2023-12? So, and then just to wrap this up, the city's website as of tonight's meeting on their bid, on the bid documents under Public Works, it says the city's website as of tonight, the bid number is 2023-12, although in the, so anyway, I believe, according to the RCW, you're going to have to republish those two. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Angie Ling.
Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My whole goal has been to get the community to hear what was going on Craig's Hill. It wasn't to start a fight. It was really to reach the people that are not online so that they could have a voice, so they could do a survey or to vote on something that is very important to our community. And I know you guys were attacked on the first city council, but the community, especially the Legion, it was their shock as well that night when they found out that you guys were voting on option D, which was stopped. So there was shock on both sides. There was emotion on both sides, and I get that. But the thing is, when this was first discussed in the newspaper in 2021, it says city is in the process to create a new Reed Park master plan. And it says the city of Ellensburg is starting the process to create a new Reed Park master plan and has launched a survey to learn how and why residents use Reed Park. They hired somebody, the architects. The goal is to develop a master plan to improve park safety by expanding non-motorized access and opportunities to and within the park while still maintaining existing park elements that make Reed Park unique to the community. Nobody knows that Reed Park was on Craig's Hill. That was one of my issues with this whole thing, was that nobody knew it was on Craig's Hill. When you look at the old photographs of the park, you see the Legion there, you see one house, and that house, the wood house, has a sign in the front yard supporting us, the Save Craig Hill movement. They stated, the neighbors that I talked with said that they were not in agreement with the massive changes on that hill. Because of all of this, I'm asking you all to please reconsider, extend the deadline on the written survey that is the city's survey that I had printed out. I printed out 400 of them for $1 a piece. That was $435. And the reason I did that was to get a hold of these people right here. It's very important that they have a voice. And I know that as a group, yes, you know what they're wanting, but there's a vast majority that have not had that vote, that voice, and they want that. So I'm asking you to consider that and give us an extra 5 months to get that done. It's important. You need to hear the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't read the next signature. Zoe? Hay. That, okay, sorry.
I'm Lori Harper. I would just like to say, I agree with the motion Angie just put upon you. We need more time with that survey. Thank you very much.
Nicole Paxton.
Hi, my name is Nicole Paxton, and I'm the American Legion Auxiliary President. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you tonight. We at the American Legion do many things that support the 4,500 veterans who call Kittitas County home. The support the American Legion provides to the veterans in our community is in danger should the proposed changes be made to Craig's Hill at Reed Park. This includes the proposed fire lane changes, which would reduce current parking by 28 spaces. We look forward to being included in the future park planning process and hope that the city means what they say when they say they want us to be prosperous. We hope they will show that support by ensuring adequate parking is available while making any changes, including changes to the fire lane. I'd like to thank City Council members Adam Wynn and Rich Elliott. Thank you for your service to this country. On that note, I'd like to invite you all to celebrate our veterans with us this Saturday from noon to 3 at the American Legion. Veterans eat for free. We'd love to see you all there. If possible, can I give an invitation to you guys?
Thank you. Sandy Sherrick.
Thank you for letting me speak. I wasn't planning on speaking, but here I am. I grew up in Ellensburg on 2nd Avenue, and I spent a lot of quality time up on Craig's Hill. It was a fun time for a lot of teenagers. Sometimes it got a little rowdy. But my concern is the Legion. My husband's a vet. My son is a disabled vet who just recently got out of the Army. And one of the first things he did when he came back to town was to go to and join the Legion. And so he has problems walking now. And so I'm very, very concerned about the disabled vets being able to access the Legion by removing parking spots. So I just want you to really consider that when you're making these decisions about the park. And I'd also like to say, agree with them. When you just said Reed Park, nobody knows where Reed Park is. People know it as Craig's Hill. It should have been advertised as the park at Craig's Hill. So I would encourage you to allow more input from the community with the understanding that they understand that it is Craig's Hill and it's not just Reed Park. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Terry Marcel. I think I said that right. Terri Marcell.
What's the last name?
It looks like Marcel to me. Marcell. That how you read it?
Maybe M-E, yeah,
Marcel?
Marcel.
Okay, well, was there anyone else who would like to speak? There are a few online. I'm going to, hands raised in the back. You may approach. Can you come to the lectern, please?
Hi, I'm John Pickett. Thank you for giving me this chance to speak. I addressed the last city council meeting. I took the survey, I filled out the survey about 10 days ago, and I was a little troubled by the questions that were and the way that the questions were asked. One was in the upper area parking question, which was very vague, and it was very difficult to really understand what you really wanted answered. So I would ask you to review the survey and review the questions, especially now since there are how many plans, plans keep propagating. and that your survey is up to date with the plans. Also, it wasn't clear to me that there was an option for people to say, leave the park as it is. There was nothing in the survey that says that. And I think that that's a crucial question on this whole issue. I don't know currently the complaint issues, if they're as outstanding as they were a few years ago. But it seems to me that things have really improved in terms of litter, noise, and traffic. I frequent the park numerous times during the week. So I just ask you to really reconsider this survey. And I would say, please include as a democratic question, do you want anything done with the park? I think it's very important. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak to the council on issues that are not on the agenda? I have Tom Metzger online. You're unmuted.
Hey, can you guys?
Yes, we can hear you.
And just to double check, this is matters that are not on the agenda?
Correct.
Awesome. So, I've noticed this recent influx in like homeless people that are around, and a lot of people losing their jobs lately. I mean, it's such a horrible economy. I'm just wondering, when are we gonna admit that, we keep taking all these shitskins and niggers into our country and our own people?
You're out of line, Mr. Metzger.
It's free speech.
No.
Yes, it is. Hate speech is free speech. Whatever you think is hate speech. Look into the Supreme Court. They've ruled on this many times. I have every right to say what I want to say for my whole time.
Proceed.
Thank you. So, as I was saying, we keep taking all these shitskins and niggers into our country, and they take our people's jobs. So the economy goes to shit, and we have to sit here while our rent goes up and the value of the dollar goes down, and we just get hordes of brown people coming in working for like slave labor. So we could enrich all these Jews that run everything. So am I not supposed to be upset about that? It's the Jews that are bringing them in here. They're the ones that own all these NGOs that flood our border and leave our borders open. So I have every right to be pissed off, and I have every right to come in here and tell you guys about it. You can't tell me I'm out of order. I'm speaking about things that are upsetting me and probably a lot of other people, that are too scared to speak out and say these things. But I'm not. So I'm getting tired of it. And all you guys want to shut me down because you don't agree with what I have to say. I mean, do you guys work for the Jews too? You probably do. You probably work closely with the ADL to try to censor my speech so that it doesn't get out there into the public. I propose a resolution for this council to take into consideration. I think we need to round up all the Jews and put them back into the concentration camps and send them the fuck out of our country.
So Drew, can you mute him? Yeah, thank you.
Fuck Jews, hail Hitler, white.
Okay, well, on that note, Keegan Bells, do you have?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good evening, members of the City Council. As a veteran who served our nation and sustained disabilities in the line of duty, I deeply cherish our constitutional rights, especially the First Amendment, and I humbly request the opportunity to speak without interruption, so thank you. I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps driven by a profound sense of patriotism. My fellow service members and I took an oath to defend our nation against all threats, both foreign and domestic. However, it appears that our national attention leans heavily towards international affairs, overshadowing the challenges we face right here at home. Upon my return from service, I grappled with financial challenges, receiving only $284 of disability compensation. I was not able to feed myself, let alone my family, since my disabilities from my military service kept me from gainful employment. It's striking to consider our President Joe Biden is committing treason by sending $75 billion in aid to Ukraine to kill European men, women, and children, while the residents for Maui, for instance, totaling around 165,000 residents, were only given $700 each, and that is only 0.153% of what he sent to Ukraine to kill women and children. Or the fact that we sent $8 billion a year to Israel to commit war crimes instead of using that money to help our own people.
Can you?
That is treason. I have the right to speak, and this is for my people and for our troops. This is for the veterans that have died and have came back home to nothing. So I please do not.
I think this is an organized effort. Bert
Madam Mayor,
Colucci.
just for your benefit, yes, it's as stated in the rules. It's for comments related to matters over which City Council has control.
Yes, that was what I tried to say. And the war in Israel is not one of them. Bert Colucci.
Hello.
You're unmuted.
Okay, thank you. As the first speaker said, we do have a First Amendment in this country, and that means that free speech is allowed. So my ancestors fought on the battlefield for that right many generations to get me to the point to where I'm at. And we are reaping the rewards from this right now. We as mankind seem to have forgotten a basic universal fact and understanding
Mr.
that has been known
Colucci,
throughout history.
can you address what the city council?
This pertains to the city. This
City
pertains
council
to
can
our
do
city.
something.
Okay? You have to allow me to continue because this pertains to our city, just as it pertains to every human in this room and every human that is listening. Thank you. This has been known throughout history. These facts can be easily verified and researched. This affects every single one of us worldwide. This, just because many of you have never heard this before,
council can do something about.
In our city, we have been here for over 100 years, okay? And I myself am a scholar. I have degrees in this. I am also a historian, so I take a lot of personal pride in protecting our history and our architecture and the way of life that we have in this community, okay? Back in the 1500s, Martin Luther wrote a book called The Jews and Their Lies. Henry
Mr.
Ford
Colucci,
of
what
Ford
does
Motors
this have?
wrote a book called The International Jew.
This is not related to city business. Richard Ward. Yeah. Good thing they're not here in person, huh? Richard Ward. You're unmuted. Richard Ward, you can speak. Please keep your comments to something the city council can do something about.
Now can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. And this does pertain to the city council. It's just going to take me a moment to get to this point. I am asking for the city council to pass a resolution. Some city councils around the country have passed resolutions that they stand with Israel, the terror state, and that they don't care that Israel is killing Muslims left and right, that Israel is a country that's illegitimate, that the Jews should be expelled from Israel, that that's not their land. Now, like I said, some city councils they stand with Israel, they stand with the ADL, they hate this country, they're working with the communists and the Bolsheviks. And I want this city council to make it known that they don't stand with communists, or that you do stand with communists and you are against free speech, and that you take orders from the ADL and that you take orders from Israel. Now, have any of you ever heard of the Talmud? For those that don't know, it's one of the books that the Judaic faith uses to guide them. It can be found in every
Mr.
synagogue.
Ward,
across-
we'll take your recommendation for the proclamation under advisement. Thank you. Chris
What
Barry.
about- Yes, hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, so Drew, do we have two unmuted at once? Okay.
I can hear you.
So is this Andy or Chris? This is Andy. Okay.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, I find it horrible that you're censoring free speech. I have family that died in Vietnam fighting communists, and
So your comments must pertain to something the city council.
I am. It's your guys' actions, and it's disgusting what you guys are doing in this town. Men and women died all over this world fighting communists, and it looks like our country's been sold a Star of David on your arms to prove that you work for the communist Jews and the ADL.
Voted on whether you have to state if you live within a city or county or state. We haven't changed that from our guidelines,
Change the
correct?
address. We said you have to identify yourself.
And we have not voted on that. So please state your
We'll have to-
address, Mr.
88 State Street.
In what city?
Sorry, what?
What city?
Oh, sorry, what?
Need to state your name and address, please.
I don't believe legally you can make me give my address.
Council rules require it.
You can go fuck yourself in your council rules, Jew.
Okay.
You have a good day.
Mr. Barry.
Hi. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, great. Well, I want to say we're tired of Israel killing Muslims. Fuck Israel. They get what they deserve. White fucking power. Hail Hitler.
Okay. Well, that was fun. Not.
Said all of
That was all of them. That would be more fun. Okay. I am sorry. And is there anyone else in the room who would like to say something? The city council can do something about. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to move on to item 8A, a public hearing for proposed property tax levy. I have a script to read. The purpose of this legislative hearing is for the city council to consider first reading ordinance 4931 to establish the ad valorem property tax levy for 2024. The public hearing is now open. I ask for your cooperation in the following procedure. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. The city clerk will be making a recording of the proceedings. I will first recognize requests to testify from anyone attending this hearing in person, followed by any persons attending remotely or via Zoom. If you wish to participate virtually via Zoom, you must raise your virtual hand on the Zoom meeting screen, or press *9 if you're connected by a telephone and wait until I've recognized your request and you have been unmuted. When you are invited to speak, begin by stating your name and address and indicate whether you are speaking for yourself individually or as a spokesperson for a certain group or both. Speak slowly and clearly. Only one person will be allowed to speak at a time. Any questions of staff are to be directed through the council. Before we hear from the audience, is there a staff report to be presented?
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor and Council, Jerica Pasco, Finance Director. Proposed ordinance 4931 reflects the 2024 levy for property taxes to be collected in 2024. The ordinance establishes the 2024 regular property tax levy and certifies the levy to the Kittitas County Commissioners. State statute limits the increase in property taxes to the lower of 1% over the prior year levy rate or the implicit price deflator, IPD. The IPD inflation rate for setting 2024 property taxes was 3.86%. Therefore, the city is limited to a 1% increase over last year's levy. Tax revenue funds are approximately 60% of the general fund budget, of which property tax alone accounts for around 15.6%. Council has very limited control over revenue or funding sources that support general government activities. So without increases in general fund revenues such as property tax, the city cannot fund the necessary overhead increases without further reducing fund balance. Or in order for delivery of service to remain consistent from year to year, funding of these services must also remain consistent and thus rise as expenses rise. The increase in IPD does reflect the overall rate of inflation that we are seeing locally. For example, EMS services are scheduled to increase 11% over the 2023 actual costs. Utility costs for general fund supported buildings are expected to exceed 4% for electric, 5% for water, and 9% for wastewater, with an anticipated consumption charge for natural gas as expected to exceed 130% increase over 2023 charges. Labor costs are anticipated to increase, including open negotiations with Teamster and IBEW agreements, a floor of 2.5% increase for OPEIU employees, and a 3.4% increase in minimum wage. These are just a few of the anticipated general fund increases in 2024. Council held a public hearing on 2024 revenue sources, including property tax, on October 2nd of 2023. Property tax collections, for the city of Ellensburg are estimated to be $3,596,777.82, equaling the highest lawful levy limit for the year. This is an increase of $83,789.86 over the 2023 levy. However, this increase reflects a 1% increase of just $35,129.88, an increase of $47,881.31 is attributed to new construction, improvements, wind turbines, solar, biomass, and geothermal facilities, and an increase of $778.67 for annexations. So just to give an idea of what this looks like, an average home valued at assessed at around $400,000 last year would have paid around $569 in property taxes for the year. So with this 1% increase, someone with a $400,000 assessed value home, their increase would be around $5.69 for the entire year. The adoption of the ordinance at 1% will increase the property tax revenue by the $35,129.88. The proposed 2024 budget includes the 1% increase. Staff recommends council conduct the public hearing and consider first reading of the proposed ordinance establishing the ad valorem property tax levy for 2024.
Okay. Thank you. The floor is open to testimony from the public. Does anyone from the public wish to make comments on this matter? If so, each person will have an opportunity to address the council for an initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. If more time is needed, it will be made available after everyone has had an opportunity to speak. Is there anyone, sir? And please begin with your name and address.
Jeff Whitman, 2104 North Park Lane Avenue. I just have a question about a comment that she just made about if your house was worth $400,000, your property taxes are $500 and some dollars. And how come I've got a house worth about that and my property taxes are almost $3,000 now? So there's either something wrong with the statement or I misunderstood something.
Thank you. We can ask Jerica to clarify.
The portion of the property tax that the city of Ellensburg receives would be around $569. The other amounts that you pay in property taxes are for school district, county, hospital district, all those additional levies. And so a lot of when you see a large increase, it's due to levies that are passed to pay for certain funding things, the schools and stuff like that. So.
Is there anyone else who would like to comment on the property tax levy? And there is no one online. Evans. Does the staff have anything to add? Council, do you have any questions of the staff or public? The public testimony portion of this hearing is now closed. Council may now begin its discussion and deliberation of this matter.
Madam Mayor, I move first reading of ordinance 4931.
Second. Motion and second for first reading of ordinance 4931. Any discussion?
Not that it's going to matter, but I don't feel like we should be increasing this taxes. As Jerica just stated, we're doing a 1%, so we're getting $5 out of it and increasing our general fund by $35,000. Whereas the hospital is going to do theirs, the school is going to do theirs, the county is going to do theirs, the state's going to do theirs. To this gentleman's point, his taxes are not going up by $5. His taxes are going to go up by $500 at the end of everything. So I would not be in favor of this motion.
I guess I would speak.
Okay.
Having watched what happened in Kittitas County for a period of 11 or 12 years, as the county commissioners deferred the 1%, they ended up in a significant funding hole, and they're still trying to recover. They can't pay competitive wages with their employees because that compounds every year, and now you're 14 or 15% behind by not taking the 1% each year. So I get it. Nobody likes to pay taxes. But, you know, hopefully from a governmental perspective, we're returning that service and when we're giving people their money back in terms of the services that we provide. But if we don't do this, it creates more problems than it solves long term. We end up being a not an employer of choice, and we're constantly hiring and training new people. We have, you know, infrastructure that degrades, and I get that this is $35,000 and it doesn't seem like a lot of money. It is when you start looking at everything in totality. So I'm very much in favor of this.
Anyone else?
I would just echo the last comment. I think it's a losing proposition to always be behind. Nobody likes to pay more in taxes, but we can quickly recognize what services would be lost very quickly in our community without even a 1% increase. And as our finance director outlined, we're not keeping up. 1% doesn't allow us to keep up. So we have to be creative in other ways. So I'll support the measure.
And I would remind everyone that the general fund, there's only certain pots of money that we can use to fund our general fund services, which include the police, library, some of city government, city manager's office, and the attorney and such, and parks, and I'm forgetting some, but for those general fund services, property tax is about a third, I think, of what funds that stuff. So, anyone else? All in favor?
There's a roll call. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on.
Not spite yet.
Double whammy.
This is just a vote.
First reading.
You're anticipating me messing up in the future.
Not exactly.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I too vote aye. Opposed?
I oppose.
Motion carries.
Thanks.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington, levying property taxes for the City of Ellensburg for the fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2024 on all property in said city which is subject to taxation for the purpose of paying sufficient revenue to carry on general operations, recognize voter approved levies, and pay debt service obligations of said city as required by law.
Thank you. 9A is second reading of the natural gas rate adjustment. Screen share, buddy.
Yeah.
That one. Slideshow.
Thanks, Drew. Sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor, Council, Buddy Stanovich, Energy Resources Manager. Before you tonight is second reading of ordinance 4928. This is the natural gas rate adjustments to comply with the Washington's Climate Commitment Act. And I'll touch on this later in my presentation, but I just wanted to make call out a few edits. We did, based on council's discussion 2 weeks ago, we did include the rate impacts in code for the G220 and the G300 interruptible gas rates. And I'll touch on that later if there's any questions. Just again, a brief overview. This is the Climate Commitment Act passed by Washington State in 2021. This took effect January of this year. And this 2023 is the first year we're going to have to submit allowances for. Both the utilities are affected by this legislation. Electric and gas utilities, sorry.
Lenny, there's some people that can't hear you. If you can move closer to the mic.
Sorry. I can do that. Again, the utilities' total emissions are derived by looking at the natural gas purchases that we have and converting those to metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalents. All the allowances are based in that form, metric ton CO2e. The state does provide some no-cost allowances. We can use some of them for compliance. The other portion we have to consign to the state's auction and sell them. The gas utilities estimated compliance obligation is just shy of 41,000 metric tons. That is for 2023 alone. The state has given the city 38,000 allowances. We've been required to consign almost 25,000 of those allowances. So we'll use the remaining 13,000 for compliance. That means we're on the hook and have to buy close to 28,000 carbon allowances for 2023 alone. This is kind of how it shakes out. What we think our estimated obligation will be, what the state has given us, what we are required to consign, and then what we have to purchase. The allowances do diminish over time, and we will be on the hook to buy more to meet that obligation moving into the future. So a couple considerations I'll walk through again is the new utility billing system, the low income discount program, and then the rate analysis that got us to this ordinance. We are expecting the billing system to go live here shortly. We get that going. We've already started working with the vendor to establish these rate classes and get this information on there so that we're able to accurately bill it. We don't see any issues there. Again, the CCA didn't define the low income definition. We're going to not increase the rates on the city's definition of the low income customers. Those folks would be exempt as they are on that rate class. The rate analysis that was done is looking at 2024 forward as far as implementing the rates. Those would take effect January 1st. We need to establish two separate rate classes for each rate class that we have, a legacy and a non-legacy rate. The legacy customers will be
that rate will be subsidized by a portion of the sale of those no-cost allowances. And we are also recommending adding on 2023's carbon allowance costs onto the 24 through 26 rates to spread that over and a little easier. So here's the rate forecast for these carbon allowances starting in January of 2024. It would be 23 cents for a legacy customer and 36 cents for a non-legacy customer. And non-legacy meaning a connection that connected to our system after July 25th, 2021. The residential bill impacts for both of those groups. This would be in more of the winter months. In 2024, looking at almost $31 a month, and for the non-legacy class, close to 45 additional in the winter. Commercial legacy around $70 additional, and non-legacy about 105. Touching on what I spoke to earlier, so we actually included in the ordinance these rates in that rate class. We usually these rate classes are set up to be formed through a contract with the customer, but we, for contracting and transparency here, we are putting it in code, and it would update as we need to update this. So due to the changes that we foresee and the amount of times we are going to have to update this rate, we think this is the best option. So this would be added on to whatever the contracted amount would be. So again, staff's recommendation would be to conduct second reading of ordinance 4928. As I presented, there would be the two classes, and low income would not be subject to this rate increase. That's all I have.
Okay,
Bill.
thanks. Is there anyone in the public who'd like to address the council regarding gas rates? Okay, council, do you have questions for staff?
Actually, this is a follow-up question because it's not about the ordinance, but it is about natural gas rates and sort of long-term. And I don't know if you can ask that at the end of the meeting or something like that, or now is the appropriate time.
It sounds like it's related.
So I've been getting some feedback related to our long-term strategy. I mean, obviously, this open marketplace, trying to get our carbon emissions down, get it, whether you agree with it or not, we're doing it. But my question is, do we have a strategy built in to get people to, incentivize them to move away from natural gas, other than just the cost is going to be its own incentive, particularly for people who can't necessarily afford that upfront cost?
So it's a good question, Rich. And the state, in developing the CCA, has a lot of language on transition and whatnot, and there'll be funds. We haven't seen those funds. We don't really know how they're going to flow down to us. Part of the sale of the no-cost allowances is establishing an account that we potentially can do something like that with, but we are still working through how and all of the nuances there. So
correct me if I'm wrong, but if we achieve a reduction in carbon emissions just because we reduce the amount of gas or the number of customers of gas, some probably can't easily convert, we'll achieve those savings and we won't have to do as much of this, or potentially any of this, if it was.
Yeah, I mean, you could get down to the point where you were under the threshold.
Thank you.
So just add on to that, what we met last week with the representatives from the Association of Washington Cities, and as we all are involved with watching the legislature this coming session, I think they're recognizing that the revenues that are coming in through through the CCA are exceeding initial expectations. And I think there's a real appetite for finding effective ways to return money back out to communities to accomplish some of the goals. So you're exactly right. I don't think we know what that looks like yet, but I know that's a high priority in the lobbying effort going forward.
Just a quick clarifying question that I'm sure I've asked before, but I can't remember the answer. So we purchased from the state an X amount, say 30,000, and we have to sell back to another entity, say like Yakima, a percentage of those 30,000 that we purchased from the state.
It's all in a marketplace auction platform that the state runs. So we don't know who's buying them, but we are consigning them to auction and they get purchased.
Can I ask one other question? Just would help me if you could, once again, I don't need an elaborate explanation, but could you clarify? My impression is that the city of Ellensburg's participation in the CCA is not optional. We don't have a choice whether we participate or not. It's been mandated by the legislature. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
So a decision not to support what we need to do to cover those costs really doesn't help in the bigger sense because we can't just turn it back on the legislature, right? I mean, there may be other ways to absorb the costs, but this is the way that our utility advisory committee and others have said is the most effective. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I just want to
We're
make
a covered entity.
Yeah.
Under the CCA.
I was going to ask you to go back to those tables and just make sure everyone's clear on what we're looking at and what we might see in our bills. The residential bill impacts. Yeah. So just the customer charge is fixed and it changes, but it's a fixed charge, right? It doesn't depend on how much gas you use. But the consumption charge and the purchase gas cost adjustment varies with the amount of cost. And those are existing charges that we've been paying all along, but it's separated out now, which it wasn't. Is that right?
Well, it's separated in the rate codes, except for the purchase gas cost adjustment. We're adjusting that monthly based on what we're buying gas for.
Okay.
So if you look at the rate code, it does have the fixed customer charge. That's a daily fee. And then there's the base CCF charge. And then plus a purchase gas cost adjustment that we do.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm clear on the difference between those two, the base and the purchase gas cost adjustment.
So one would be more for the distribution system and the infrastructure and the crews and whatnot. That's a fixed charge, volumetric charge. The purchase gas cost adjustment is strictly just the wholesale pass through of the cost of gas purchased.
Okay. And then the CCA compliance adjustment is an additional charge we've never seen before, but it is also volumetric.
It is volumetric. Yeah.
Okay. So when I get my bill, I'm just going to see one number, how much I'm going to see how many CCF I used in the billing period. And then I'm going to see my charge, right?
Our plan with the new billing system is to be able to actually start breaking this out.
Okay.
So it will help make it a little more clear.
Okay. Yeah, and hopefully use terminology we can understand about what's the consumption charge and the gas charge. Okay. Is there any other questions?
Madam Mayor, I move second reading and adoption of ordinance 4928.
Second.
Motion and second for second reading and adoption of ordinance 4928. Is there any further discussion? To Rich's point, I did want to add, so we are in the process of the developing the sustainability plan, which will come to council. I'm not sure when, in a few months, but but part of those recommendations are expanding our weatherization and efficiency programs, and developing programs for the rebates for those electric appliances like you talked about, Rich. Part of our legislative agenda is to try and get the state to develop those programs and piggyback on them rather than having to develop those ourselves. And I just want to remind everyone that we do have a low income senior and disabled rate. So if you think you might qualify for that, please talk to our utility people to sign up for that. I don't recall what the thresholds are, but that is something that will reduce your gas bill significantly. So, okay.
Is this relevant?
Yeah, there's a press release going out regarding all of this, and so it'll, yeah, I'm not going to read it. So, okay, that, will you please take the roll?
Beauchamp?
Yes.
Elliott?
Yes.
Goodlow?
Yes.
David Miller?
Aye.
Monica Miller?
Yes.
Wynn?
No.
Lilquist?
Aye.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington, relating to gas utility rates and amending section 9.91.200 of the Ellensburg City Code.
So we are at 9B, ordinance 4929. This is the land development code amendments.
Good evening, council members, Madam Mayor. Jeremy Johnston, Community Development Planning Manager, for the record. In August of this year, Community Development initiated a land development code cycle. This is a type 5 process. We brought these items before Planning Commission on September 28th and before City Council on October 16th of this year. These amendments included 2 citizens' proposed amendments. One would adjust the short subdivision expiration schedule to be consistent with state requirements. The second was a citizen proposed amendment that would allow for indoor recreation within the residential office zone with a conditional use approval. The third item was a housekeeping amendment item, which included several code revisions recommended by staff to ensure consistency in our code sections, both internally and with state requirements. The fourth item was a docket cycle timeline review revision. And the fifth item was a streetscape departure code section within our access and shared driveway sections. As mentioned, this was brought before council on October 16th, 2023. Council voted to approve the amendments and perform the first reading of ordinance 4929. This evening, staff is requesting second reading of ordinance 4929, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak regarding the land development code amendments? Okay, is there questions from council?
I was just going to ask, just to clarify on 2309, as it was noted, language would be added to address proposed, various departure options. Without going into too much detail, could you just briefly summarize what was accomplished in that?
Sure. You're referring to the in the staff report, the discussion that we were going to
it was
talk to the city attorney about the language.
Yeah, it said as presented with an understanding city attorney would review the section, et cetera, change to item 2309, et cetera, et cetera.
That's correct.
I just want to make sure that we're clear on what was done in order to get it.
Sure. The revision ended up being exactly what was presented to council. It was basically just establishing a limitation on that departure option for preliminary plats that were approved prior to adoption of this ordinance, to limit it being a loophole being found in that. So
it's on page 175. Yeah, it's section 1 there. It's the language that speaks to
only applied to developments if the preliminary plat approval was made prior to ordinance.
The effective date was the key on that. That's what I was recalling, but thank you for the clarification.
And just to follow up, at the last meeting, we talked that regarding that Jensen rezone request.
That was on the comp plan cycle, which is not
That's a
among
whole
these items.
different, that's right. I'm sorry.
No problem.
It's numbers mixed up. Okay, so any more questions? Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move we conduct second reading of ordinance 4929.
Second.
Motion and second to conduct just second reading or second reading and adoption?
Second reading and adoption, sorry.
Of ordinance 4929. Is there any further discussion? Will the clerk please take the roll?
Boshaw,
Yes.
Goodlow,
Yes.
David Miller,
Aye.
Monica Miller,
Yes.
Wynn,
Yes.
Lowquist.
Yes. So we're at page.
I'll read the ordinance,
sorry.
sorry. An ordinance relating to the City of Ellensburg Land Development Code, Title 15, amending chapters as listed in the ordinance.
Okay. Page 180, ordinance 4930, streeteries, parklets, and sidewalk cafes.
Yes, this item involves amendments to Title 4.14A, which is our streeteries code section. There are 3 items proposed here. The first item was an amendment to the definition of director to include the director's designee. The second was a clarification on a requirement for building permits for all habitable streeteries despite the size, which the current ordinance creates some false expectations. So it was to remedy that. And then the third amendment was a citizen proposed amendment, which would allow for flexibility in the amount of seating allowed for streeteries when sidewalk widths permit. These items again were brought before City Council on October 16th, where the council voted to approve them as presented. Staff is requesting conduct second reading and approval of ordinance 4930.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak to this issue? Seeing no one, council, do you have any questions? Seeing none, do you have any motions?
Madam Mayor, I motion that we conduct second reading and adoption of ordinance 4930.
Second.
Motion and second to conduct second reading and adoption of ordinance 4930. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Boshaw,
Yes.
Goodlow,
Yes.
David Miller,
Aye.
Monica Miller,
Yes.
Wynn,
Yes.
Lowquist.
Yes.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington relating to chapter 4.14A, streeteries, parklets, and sidewalk cafes, and amending sections 4.14A.020, 4.14A.030, and 4.14A.070 of the Ellensburg City Code.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are at item 9D, page 189. This is amending, providing for republication of the Ellensburg City Code.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council, Terry Weiner, City Attorney. Earlier this year, you may have noticed we switched our agenda preparation software to Civic Clerk, which is in the product family of City Plus. Thank you, Civic Plus ahead of well. And Civic Plus has a whole software suite of products for cities to use. In conjunction with that, we also started to look at our municipal code software, which right now our code for many years has been published by Code Publishing, and both Muni Code, which is now owned by Civic Civic Plus, and Code Publishing. They're competitors. They publish all over the country. We're recommending. Well, we've actually started the process for converting our city code over to the Muni Code software, and the reason for that is because it's now owned by Civic Plus. It has elements that will integrate better with our website. So the search capabilities will be greatly enhanced. When people search for something, they'll be able to differentiate between whether they're searching our agendas, or they're searching our website, or they're just searching for our
city code, and or they can pick whichever one. So the search results will be much more granular. So we feel that there'll be greater efficiency both for staff using it as well as the public. In addition, we'll be able to upload our ordinances once they're passed and adopted by council to our platforms much quicker than we are, just because of the tie-in again between these two, between Muni Code and Civic Plus and Civic Clerk. So to do that, though, our ordinance actually states that it's now published by Code Publishing. And technically under the RCW, we have to then republish our code with a new code publisher, which would be Municode. So there's the one amendment that staff has requested to be made to section 1.01.010, which appears on the first page of the ordinance. And with that, staff is recommending first reading of the ordinance, number 4932, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak to this issue? Didn't think so. Any questions? Questions from council?
Madam Mayor, I move first reading of ordinance 4932.
Second.
Motion and second for first reading of ordinance 4932. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I too vote aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ellensburg, Washington, relating to Chapter 1.01 Code Adoption and amending sections 1.01.010 of the Ellensburg City Code.
Thank you. We are at item 9E. This is a resolution updating the council rules of procedure.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. Terry Weiner again, City Attorney, here to talk about the council rules and public comment. As you know, at your October 2nd, 2023 meeting, on a recommendation from the DEI Commission, City Council expressed interest in having the council rules revised pertaining to the requirement for public comment that a person making public comments give their address during the public comment period, and gave staff direction to pursue that and change to the rules. In addition, the rules were last updated about a year ago, roughly, and staff normally looks at those annually, and we have some other recommendations to make on changes to the rules. But taking these in order, the recommendation from the DEI Commission change appears in Rule 7.1C, which is on page 211 of your packet. And briefly, what it states is that it took out the requirement for a person to state their address, but it does require that they still state whether they live in the city of Ellensburg, Kittitas County, or elsewhere. And it retains a requirement that in instances where an address might be needed for legal reasons, such as during public hearings, that the address would still be required of a person. So that, again, that changes on it's on page 211 or page 13 of the actual rules. The second change, which was made in two different sections, is for remote attendance of council members as well as committee board and chair members, or commission members, when they appear by video conferencing for meetings. We've had over the past couple of years, since the hybrid meetings have become a requirement, it's been noticed that particularly at board and commission meetings, that the board and commission members appearing virtually are turning off their cameras or sometimes never have them on. And staff is of the opinion that the cameras need to be on as a requirement of attending the meetings virtually, so that the public knows that the council member is actually there and listening and participating. And so we've added that requirement into Rule 1.7 for council members, and then to Rule 10.8, which is 10.7 for board, commission, and committee members. So that's the second change. And then the last change was to add a new section 10.7, which defines the roles of council liaisons when they're participating as liaisons appointed by council for our boards, committees and commissions. And it defines those roles as to be one of, truthfully what the liaison means, which is bringing back information from council, from the boards and commissions to council and vice versa. And to define that role as not, participating in the meetings themselves so that we don't have those roles crossed. So that change appears at page 219 in as I said, the new rule proposed 10.7. And there was also a typographic error that was that appeared in that section as well. So with that, staff is recommending adoption of resolution 2023-29, which would update the council rules. And I am here to answer any questions you may have.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this issue? You need to come up to the microphone, please, so that if anyone's watching on,
Hi, Christy Gilchrist, City of Ellensburg. So I was wondering if there were any requirements for the public to also appear on camera.
It's not in the rule as proposed. That's a council policy decision.
Okay. Thank you. We'll take that suggestion under advisement.
Thank you. I think it would go a long ways
Yeah,
to
I'm wondering if
make them accountable.
council, are we okay with still eliminating given tonight? And I apologize for not enforcing what was still a rule in anticipation of this, but I think I could have at least asked for city. Going forward, if that happens again, I can ask for city, what city or county folks live in, or enforce that.
So I guess my response to that is us having a rule and having somebody give a bogus address. If somebody wants to get around and do what they did tonight, they're going to get around the rule. The rule is in place to give us context.
Yeah.
And I care whether somebody's a city resident or owns a business in the city or not. On some issues that matters to me in terms of how I take that input versus somebody who may be from King County and doesn't live here. And so I think it's important to know whether they're a city resident. I don't care what their address is. That's my personal opinion.
Okay.
I would pair it, what Councilmember Elliott just said. It doesn't matter to me what their physical address is, as long as they can distinguish if they live within the city, own a business in the city, or live within the county at least.
I would add, I agree with that as well. And I think the comment is, I think it does give us pause. I think that the idea of having someone participate, having essentially the same rules that would apply to a council member or a commission member by having their camera on, I think could go a long way toward that. I think it would probably deter people who are generally cowardly and willing to say anything when they're anonymous. However, I also think some of these folks love to get on television and would love the opportunity. So not relevant probably to this resolution, but I think it's something we might want to consider talking about in the future.
Yeah, the dilemma that I see is we allow participation by phone, and because not everyone has the camera on their computer. So I'm not sure how we would enforce that if they were participating by phone.
Exactly.
But you can make that as an exception. So anyway, is there any further questions for staff? Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move adoption of resolution 2329, replacing rules and procedures for city council.
Second.
Motion and second to adopt resolution 2329, updating city council rules and procedure. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
To vote aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. You're at new business, item 11A. This is the third quarter financial status and investment report, page 224.
Zoom. There you go. Do you want to hit the other Zoom? There you go. Good evening again, Council and Madam Mayor, Jerica Pasco, Finance Director for the City of Ellensburg. So beginning on page 227 of your agenda report are the 2023 third quarter financial status and investment reports for the period ending September 30th, 2023. The third quarter reports were presented to the Finance Committee at the October 26, 2023 meeting. Third quarter projections were made as of the current situation on September 30th. Projections were made with a continued slow of cooling of inflationary increases in mind. General fund expenditures, as shown on the right-hand column here, are expected to end below budget as required. Budgeted expenditures reflect all adjustments that were previously taken to council for approval prior to September 5th of 2023. Revenue projections were made on an individual revenue account basis and will be discussed further in this report. The current underspending in the general fund continues to be created with unfilled position. A breakdown of general fund departments is included on table 7 of this report. So table 2 shows year-to-date revenue remitted from the state sales tax activity. And actually, I wanted to comment that it's actually remitted through the state. I think this has been kind of misleading that people may see that this is a share of revenue from the state, but we have a lot of revenues that are actually required to be remitted to the state and then returned back to us, such as our business license fees, sales tax, a bunch of those other things. So overall, third quarter revenue distributed through the state is up just over 3%. It's still seen a decline like everything else. 2020, it's up over 3% over 2022. It was up about 4% at the end of second quarter. Again, a lot of these sales tax revenues will be discussed in more detail in the next 3 tables. The ones that I wanted to point out again, I think I talked about it a little bit last time, was the second row, and that's the city assistance, because you'll see that that's down 52% over last year. And just as a reminder, the city assistance is a portion of the state real estate tax or REIT distribution. And each quarter, the state divides the county and city assistance account balance in half and redistributes that out depending on local sales tax revenue relative to the state and other criteria depending on population to determine that distribution. So that one's down a lot because real estate sales are down quite a bit. Hotel, motel, and lodging taxes continue to stay up. It's still up 14% over last year, as well as liquor excise taxes up 11%. Everything else is pretty steady. The bottom row down there that says other revenues, that's up 22%. That's kind of split between our business license fees. There's some other revenues we received from the state for criminal justice based on population and special programs, DUIs, and then local leasehold interest, local sales tax interest, our fire insurance, our leasehold taxes, and a few other things like that. So that's mostly up due to the local sales tax interest. Table 3 shows all governmental fund tax revenues by type. So overall, the governmental fund tax revenue is projected to exceed the budget by approximately $607,000 or 3.14%. Current sales tax projections use a 2% increase over 2022, which you'll see is really consistent with what's happening right now. And with the projected continued cooling. The B&O tax projections uses a 5 to 15% increase over 2022, depending on the utilities. The utility tax increases are based on individual utility rates, outstanding receivables, seasonal trends, and other forecasted utility revenue changes. Table 4 breaks down the difference of budgeted less projected by tax purpose. So overall, the sales tax is projected to come in around 4.5% over budget. Last quarter, it was about 4.7% over budget. And first quarter, I think it was around 5.73% over budget. So you can see we have that slight gradual decrease. Keeping in mind that these are all restricted retail sales, except for the regular retail sales, which is projected to only come in around 100,000 over budget. And again, when we have additional or unexpected expenditures that arise in the governmental funds, we usually end up using regular retail sales tax since it's unrestricted to cover those. So that's a really narrow margin there. Table 5 digs farther into the sales tax by activity. Last quarter, construction sales tax had the highest dollar increase, and now 3 months later, it shows a decrease. So I constantly talk about how construction sales tax is very volatile, and so I try to take that out of there when looking at projections. And this is just kind of a reminder. It was the highest increase, and now 3 months later, we're seeing a decrease. Regular retail sales tax revenue, which is what we typically tend to follow, had a 3.3% overall increase over the same period last year. So it's really tapered off. I wish I would have put a second quarter column next to these so that you can see there, but regular retail trade went from a negative 0.9% to 0.3. So that one's really close. Accommodation and food services is the one that's still doing really well. It went from 6.1% to 7%. And then again, construction went from a 6.2% increase to a negative 0.4% increase. So overall, we're seeing 2.3% over last year. At the end of second quarter, it was 2.4%. And again, these revenues are for sales from November through July. Table 6 is a year-to-date utility tax by activity. So it's pretty consistent to first and second quarter. However, overall, second quarter was up over 2022 by 11.36%, and it's now only up by 8.67%. But a lot of this is the drop in the utility taxes based on the weather. We're in that period right now where the weather has really changed. Last week we had our heat on, but prior to that, we didn't really have a lot of heat or air conditioner on. So gas went down from 31.23% over the previous year to 22.9%. So that's a lot of our drop there. Table 7 does not include the managerial funds again, and this is the general funds revenues and expenditures budgeted compared to projection. So overall, the far column on the right shows that we're expected to bring in about 609,000 over budget for revenues and about $2 million under budget for expenditures. Overall, the taxes that we're looking at receiving over budget around 324, and this is due to utility tax revenues. License and permits should be over budget by about 12,000, and that's building permits, which is another kind of volatile one based on timing. Let's see. Miscellaneous, we're looking at around 452,000 over budget, and that again is our investment interest. Expenditures are still coming in quite a bit under budget, and again, it's really due to unfilled positions at this time. So as soon as we get a lot of those positions filled, we'll see a lot of that turnaround. But the 2023 ending projected right now shows a ending fund balance of excess over revenue for about 1 million for the general fund. Table 8 is our debt. There's no new debt payments and no new debt for third quarter. So we're still ending it with about 8.2 million in GO debt and about 25.8 million in revenue bonds. However, we'll make our big debt payments in November. So at the end of next quarter, you'll see those. On the last page of this, the table shows that the city brought in approximately 12.23 million more than it spent in 2023 year to date. However, 7.15 million of that excess is from utility and internal service funds. There's another 4.8 that was from the insurance recovery from the Racket and Rec Center fire, as well as the general fund, which includes all the managerial funds in blue, saw a net loss of around 1.07 million. But I think I talked about again last time, a lot of that is due to transfers to the debt funds that the payments will come out in November. On our investment reports at the end of third quarter, the city had about 88.5 million funds invested, 66.1 million of that we had in the LGIP. The LGIP yield was at 5.39 at the end of third quarter. The yield curve is still inverted. We did invest about additional 1.5 million in third quarter into a 4 to 5 year investment. It had a yield of around 4.73 or 4.45, I think it was. We're trying to take some of that money out of the LGIP and invest it in a little bit longer term yields in case the LGIP again starts to drop. So we have something to hold us through. Overall, we earned around $350,000 of interest in September. We earned approximately $1 million in third quarter and have earned around 2.6 million year to date on our investments. So staff recommends council adopt the third quarter 2023 financial status and investment reports as presented, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak regarding the financial report? Council, do you have any questions? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move we accept the third quarter financial status and investment report.
Second.
Motion and second to accept the third quarter financial status and investment report as presented. Is there a discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I too vote aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, this is item 11B, the annual poet laureate and Arts Commission report and spending plan.
Not finding the little shared thing. Huh? Thanks, Heidi. Where is it? Oh, perfect. 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 Why, thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, staff, leftover audience members. Let's talk about art. My name is Kelly Vandenberg. I'm the Arts and Economic Development Manager for the City of Ellensburg. All right. And this evening, we are talking about our 2023 year in review and annual report for the Arts Commission. What's the that's just space bar? Is it the space bar or is it the? There we go. Thank you. Our current commissioners are President Alex Ayer, Jerry Dowdery, Brian Kuzer, Aaron Ostra, who is our newest, and Courtney Blackstock, Jeffrey Sendecker, and Jill Sheffer. Sorry, let me go back one. Our current programming includes our Poet Laureate program, our public art program, our First Friday Art Walk, and our project grants. With 4 key components to our programming, the Arts Commission works with artists and art organizations throughout the community to support activities to help create opportunities, develop and enrich the performing arts, visual arts, and literary arts, and to drive economic development through the creative industry within Ellensburg. I would like to introduce to you Marie Marchland, the first poet laureate of the city of Ellensburg, which is a unique position throughout the Washington state programs. There are about 9 or 10 currently city and counties that have adopted a poet laureate program, and it's been my honor to work with Marie for the last 6 months. So without further ado, Marie.
Alex Ayer, Chairman of the Arts Commission. The poet laureate would very much like for me to distribute this poem that she's written for an upcoming event. Not me, but in light of the fact that this poem is about healing.
Yes, good evening. Thank you for having me. Alex and I have been here the whole time outside, and Drew gave us listening devices, so we've been here the whole time. And I thought, I would really like to read this poem because of what was in the room earlier, because I really believe in the healing power of poetry. So I'd like to read this gift for you. It's called Holding Space. Be the bowl, the cradled hands, the open heart, the quiet breath. Be the presence, the head nod, the attention, the yes, and I am here. Be the witness, the acceptance, the one who doesn't judge, the humility. Be the safe container, the deep listener, the companion, the community. Be the permission, the allowance, the softening, the reflection of common humanity. Be the possibility, the open mind, the river of light, the offering. Be the invitation, the channel, the hope that comes from connection, the space where healing can begin. It's been wonderful to be the Poet Laureate since June of 2022. And there's so many things that I've been able to do and so many people that I've been able to meet and collaborate with. So thank you for your support of that. And the report I gave to you a few months ago was for the last 6 months. And so these are just some highlights on the screen. Of course, many of you were there for the poem in this room, so that was very exciting. And then I was at a reading in Tieton at Lit Fuse. And then I've done some poetry nature walks. It's like when you start collecting something and everybody finds out about it. And then before long, you have like all of these gnomes, for example, or something like that. I did one poetry walk and then people associated me with it, which was great because I love nature and poetry together. And so now I've done 4 poetry nature walks in different places. So this one was at Helen McCabe State Park. And so we walk around, and this was with Jill Sheffer. And so she talked about the biodiversity there. And then I talked about poetry. And then at the last one, which was down at Snow Mountain Ranch in Yakima 2 weeks ago, there was a participant. And after we all wrote poems and shared them, he said, it's so cool about poetry that there's no wrong answer. And I thought it's a really beautiful thing for him to have said, because there's never a wrong answer there. And then I was at I was doing self-care for poetry at a Seattle mental health conference. And then, so those are some of the highlights. And then I wanted to also talk about something upcoming that is the culminating project of my poet laureateship, because my poet laureateship ends in June, at the end of June 2024. And it's going to be a book, a chapbook, which is a small book, but instead of being bound, it's going to be a walking chapbook. And so the pages, which will be the poems, will be on 30 storefronts downtown, during the month of April, which is National Poetry Month. So people will be able to walk around and read the poems. So I'm really excited about that. The theme is In the Spirit of Unity, and it goes along with the groundbreaking of Unity Park. I'm working with Kelly and the EDA also on this for business involvement. So we're really excited about that. The call for submissions went out, so feel free to pass along the word that we're looking for poems now, and they can be sent to Kelly, and all of the guidelines are on the Poet Laureate webpage. And then there'll be kind of a roving launch. Usually when you have a book come out, you have a big launch party, and it'll just be, we'll be moving from one poem to another, that the poets will read. And it's open to all poets in Central Washington, because the Yakima poets and the Wenatchee poets have been really supportive of this program in our city. So we wanted to invite them also. And then just to close, I wanted to invite you to some upcoming events and let you know about them. So this Thursday, we're having an open mic at New Wave Gallery that I'm co-hosting with a CW graduate student, Mariah Sebastiani. And then we're hoping to partner with a student club at Central for the January open mic and have it on campus. And then also on November 17th, Vox Humana Vocal Ensemble is having a concert with Valley Voices also included, and the high school choir at 7 p.m. at the United Methodist Church. And I'm going to be reading some poems during that concert. That's been a fun part of the Poet Laureateship, is collaborating with the different artists in the vocal community. And then on December 1st, Chamber by Candlelight is going to be at United Methodist Church. And that is a beautiful program that Dr. Nicole Lemartine puts on with the chamber choir. And they will be premiering a sestina that I wrote called Swimming in Silence. So that's a little bit about what I've done and a little bit about what's upcoming. So are there any questions for me before I pass it back to Kelly?
Questions? Thank you. You've done an admirable job.
Thank you.
Set a very high bar.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Marie, for that. And anyone who is able to attend the open mic poetry night, I really encourage that. The first one, we probably had 30 plus people in attendance, and immediately everybody wanted to know when the second one was happening. So it was well received in our community. So one of the other things that we focus on in the Arts Commission is our public art programs. And Ellensburg is known for its public art. We are becoming looked at in Central Washington for the public art that we are putting out there, as well as the leadership that we are presenting with regards to the arts and particularly public art. One of the projects was the bus shelter projects, and with the installation of the library art piece by the Shelley family, this project is complete. And one of the things that we loved about this project in particular was the importance the Shelley family put on the library and how it really helped get them through COVID. And that it was something that they could do together as a family. So together as a family, they created this art piece. And if you haven't had a chance to check out that art piece, please do so. And this next slide is the Ellensburg postcard mural in production. We had the honor of looking at this artwork and watching this kind of come to fruition in our downtown. It should be done, scheduled to be done, I think, in another week or so. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, please do so. In 2023, it was a very busy year. Carrie Reichbach was named our 2023 Arts Treasure Award. Staff liaison for the Arts Commission was hired. And then within our creative industry strategic plan, we got a lot done. Our performance and makerspace feasibility study is complete. In fact, the public reading of that will be on this Wednesday evening at 4 p.m. If you'd like to attend that or more information on that, please let me know. I can get that over to you. The Creative District application itself will be submitted by December 2nd. We should have notification in the spring, hopefully by March. Our Ellensburg Arts and Cultural Alliance, which is a resource for arts and helping drive the creative industry, formally formed its 501c3. And our year one strategies for the creative strategic plan are nearly complete. It has been a very busy year with regards to arts, and the Arts Commission has been a proud stakeholder in that process. As I mentioned earlier in the start, Erin Ostra is our new Arts Commission. She is a professional artist in the community as well as a business owner, and also encourages and has been partnering with our Poet Laureate, as well as mentoring and working with community artists to advance their programming. The Unity Park Action Team has been hard at work looking at different options for the park itself as that goes underway, and we will continue conversation there. We had our first poetry open mic. Our bus shelter project is complete, and we've been increasing community awareness through a series of social media programs, just working on getting art out into our community and increasing that community awareness of the programming. Before you right now is a list of our recommended 2024 project grants. This cycle had over 34 applicants. That's the largest in recent history, totaling $64 in ask, with a budget of $30,000 to fulfill those asks. So we broke this down to individual and organizational projects. And further on in the presentation, we'll do a formal request for that. But the wonderful thing about this is that most of the projects are all age appropriate or family appropriate. They go across various disciplines, art disciplines, so that there's a wide variety. There's a lot of work by underserved or marginalized communities within this list. And there's some incredible new events that will be happening, as well as new opportunities in the realm of art. And the sheer volume of applicants is a success story just for our creative district and our creative industry in our community. Some of the things that we're looking for in 2024 for projects and plans: we're launching our Certified Creative District. We'll be creating a Wayfinder path, connecting the two quadrants of our creative district. The two quadrants are our downtown core, which will actually extend down to Capitol Street, up to University Way, and then across University Way to Nicholson Pavilion and down around Alder. So it will include our downtown as well as CW. And that wayfinding path will help create more inclusion between community and the college, as well as help people notify where our creative districts are. We're looking at expansion of public art into our neighborhood nodes and increasing our downtown art. As I mentioned earlier, Unity Park Action Team, looking at different public pieces that can go into Unity Park, as well as arts in other parts of the downtown and in the city. We're looking at enhancing the First Friday Art Walk program. It's been tremendously successful in different ways that we might be able to improve that and bring some new opportunities there for artists in visual and performance. The creation of Ellensburg Mural Guild, and this is something that I'm pretty passionate about, but it's a multi-organizational public art program that would help protect and preserve public art, murals, sculptures, that type of thing, and help anyone who's looking to preserve those streamline the process of being able to do that, and basing it kind of on the model of our pre-app process for community development. So, and then continue to support community art. Right now, we have our poetry pole and our wind pole that will be part of Whipple Park, as well as potential for a mural on the CW building, dining services building near Whipple Park as well. So there's quite a few opportunities to continue to support the public art sectors. Our proposed spending budget, we're looking at operations at $15,000, grants at 30, public art at 5, for a total of 50,000 for our annual budget. We've spent a lot of time, the commissioners and I, looking at the budget in the past and really eliminating any waste within the budget and looking at ways that we can kind of increase funding that goes straight to the artists. So that concludes my report. Staff would like to ask for a motion to approve the recommended 2024 Art Commission grants as presented, as well as do I need to do both motions at the same time? Can I do both motions at the same time?
You can tell us.
Present them both.
Okay.
We'll do the motions.
Okay, thank you. I would also like to ask for a motion to approve the 2024 Arts Commission spending plan as presented.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the audience who'd like to speak to this issue? Questions from council?
I don't have a question, but I'd like to comment as the council member assigned to the Arts Commission. I just wanted to congratulate the Arts Commission. I think in case anyone missed it, this is a really exciting time for the arts in Ellensburg. And I think that in my observation, there's never been a shortage of passion and commitment to the arts among the arts commissioners. But I think that the addition of Kelly as a staff support person I'm seeing phenomenal energy, and I see that as just an outstanding way to leverage that. So congratulations. And I know you've only been here 5 minutes or so, but keep up the good work. It's really exciting.
Thank you.
Adam?
So out of all these grants and art projects that are going on around the city, has there been any consideration for redoing the art that is on the buildings down 3rd Street that have been neglected for?
Are you talking about the murals?
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually part of the mural restoration program. The EDA currently has projects going for mural restoration right now. And that mural guild would fold into that. I've spoken to Stacy Henderson from Landmarks and Design, as well as the Arts Commission, several members within the private sector as well, to kind of form that guild so that it increases the number of people who are helping lift that. So the mural specifically on the Kleinberg building, as well as my favorite, the Rodeo gal with the yellow background. Those are the next two on the list, actually.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Exciting. So exciting. For the spending plan, it lists $5,000 for public art. I'm wondering if the reserves are being integrated at all.
Not yet. No, that will use the reserves and make a special request to use the reserves for that. We're currently underspending on our public art right now. So, which is why there's a slight reduction in public art from 7,500 from last year to the 5,000 this year, with the idea that we could do a special ask for the reserves as we need it.
There aren't any plans for that yet.
There are a few options on the table.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure it was still on everyone's radar that there is an additional fund for public art in addition to the $5,000.
Yes.
Yeah. And then just a comment that I'd love to see the fact that next year is the 25th anniversary of First Friday Art Walk as a focus too, because that's pretty cool.
It's a huge thing. The Art Walk subcommittee has already started planning, and that now consists of Aaron, Jill, and Courtney. So, as well as we'll be utilizing our subcommittee volunteers. So,
anyone else? Is there any motions?
Madam Mayor, I'll take them one at a time if that's acceptable. I'd move council approve the recommended project grant awards submitted by the Arts Commission.
Second.
Motion,
Sorry, is this when I recuse myself?
yes, if you have a grant award.
Yep. Not personally, but represent an organization that
Yes,
does.
yeah. So there is a motion and second to approve the recommended project grant awards. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
2 vote aye opposed and 1 recusal.
And Madam Mayor, I move council approve the 2024 Arts Commission spending plan as submitted by the Arts Commission.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the 2024 Arts Commission spending plan as presented. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
2 vote aye opposed. Motion carries. We are at the Fieldhouse consultant agreement. Yeah, and we should have said, thank you for the poem, Marie.
Thank you.
That was,
Very nice.
yeah.
Okay, good evening, Council, Madam Mayor, Brad Case, Parks and Recreation Department. I'm here before you this evening to talk about a Fieldhouse consultant agreement for the construction of a field house at Rotary Park. So back in a little over a year ago, December 2nd of 2022, a fire claimed the Ellensburg Rec and Recreation Center. Since that time, we've kind of expedited the process of trying to site and develop a field house that would take the place of the Racket Center. The idea of a field house isn't new. Community members have been talking to council and staff about this type of project for a few years now, and but we're kind of bumped it up in the schedule with what happened at the Racket Center. And so the idea behind this new building is that would be a large open turf space that could accommodate field sports such as football, rugby, soccer, baseball, softball. It would also have multi-purpose hard court space for things like basketball, volleyball, pickleball, tennis, and wheeled activities. We're looking at an estimated size of 100 to 150,000 square feet. We are currently wrapping up the planning process for the Rotary Park Master Plan update, which includes a field house in the southeast corner of that park property. We've also been in communication with Winco Foods that's putting the distribution center directly south of the property and trying to develop a secondary access into this facility so we're not impacting the West Ellensburg neighborhood any more than they already have been with the development of the park. And so those conversations are all ongoing. We solicited qualifications from firms to perform design services for a wide variety of disciplines. We had 12 firms submit qualifications. From that 12 firms, we narrowed the list down to 5 firms that we interviewed. The firm that rose to the top was the Helix Group. They have a lot of experience with planning large-scale recreation facilities such as this, and their understanding of the civil engineering elements of the project and their ability to customize their presentation specifically to our project is kind of what brought them to the top of our list. This is a really complex project, and so we have a lot of things going on here, and this firm could meet all of those things. And so the goal for this phase of planning is to verify the project scope, budget, and schedule, as well as look at the functional programs and funding, look at jurisdictional project approvals through permitting, establish a realistic project schedule, and then research and evaluate alternative delivery methods to this project. At the end of it, we'll have 30% design documents of the building and the site. As a part of the process, Helix's approach will include a series of in-person workshops with a project committee that we will put together. Those are actually planned for the end of this month. And we'll pull in different user groups that are using Rotary Park right now, as well as groups that we think will want to use the field house. And so then those workshops will be followed by some virtual workshops and meetings throughout the phase 1 process. And during that time, the permitting will also be initiated for building site and site data that will all be gathered as well. We hope to be done with this phase or be under construction in fall of 2024. It's estimated that our planning process for this phase is going to end in late May. And just to give you a reminder, our estimated project budget for the entire project is about $25 million. So this is a big project, and we're looking at ways to fund it internally through the money that we received from the Racket Center insurance settlement, as well as some local dollars, state dollars, and federal dollars, and then probably going out to private business and looking for assistance there too. So we do not want to go to the taxpayers to help fund this building. We want to be able to fund this internally. So with that said, the funding from the project, this specific kind of component of it will be from the insurance settlement that we received from the Racket Center. Additional budget expenditure authority is needed to accommodate this expenditure. We have established a capital fund created to budget and account for all of the expenses associated with the Fieldhouse. And so with that, the recommendation before you this evening is to authorize the city manager to sign the consultant agreement with the Helix Design Group in the amount of $1,122,300 and approve other necessary budget adjustments that need to be made. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Derek Mayo is here this evening. He was put together a lot of most of the information related to the request for qualifications and can answer. If you guys have technical questions related to the project, Derek is here to help answer those because I can't. So with that, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you have.
Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak to this issue? Any questions from the council or staff?
I don't have a question, but I would acknowledge, I think it's stated the additional access that's being integrated into this project, I think is going to be hugely important for the community. Obviously essential for this facility, but my expectation is it will improve circulation for the entire park. So hopefully that will make it through the design process. But I think it's a really, really important thing that we're finally adding that second connection to the park. It's been on the list of wishes for as long as I've been on the council and even before that. So I'm happy to see.
4th of July.
Yeah, 4th of July. That used to be.
And for fire code reasons, we have to have a secondary access into our space and out of our space, as well as Winco. So this is, a joint effort that's really going to benefit both those projects immensely.
Yeah, I think it's excellent.
Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I moved to authorize the city manager to sign the consultant agreement with Helix Design and approve the necessary budget adjustments.
Second.
Motion and second to authorize the city manager to sign the consultant agreement with the Helix Design Group and approve the necessary budget adjustments. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 11D is the legislative priorities.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, council as well. Heidi Barron-Sternaway, City Manager. You have before you a set of legislative priorities as a reminder, in local government, what happens at the federal and state level impacts us sometimes very much directly. You had a couple items on your agenda tonight that are related to our priorities, probably our top two priorities. Earlier this year, too, council approved expenditure of a lobbyist to help us with these efforts at the state level specifically. And we went through an RFP process and hired Josh Weiss and Hannah Jones of Gordon Thomas Honeywell to help us with our advocacy. Your job to establish a set of legislative priorities, sometimes we call it a legislative agenda, gives us the blessing to move forward and advocate for these items on behalf of the city. And so there are times when we may come back to you for further direction and analysis. But it's really helpful when council has a specific direction for the agenda and sets our priorities so we can move forward and get to work on those. So the number one one of the top priorities is really making some adjustments to the Climate Commitment Act. And so you have in your package tonight a list of requests and edits that will help the city to adjust to some of the climate commitment acts. We are one of two small municipal utilities, gas utilities in the state that are disproportionately impacted by the Climate Commitment Act. We have a very small staff. One of the items that came up tonight was, can we create programs and to make sure we can meet the goals that are established through the state law. And that would require significant staffing. And so we're asking the state to step in. There are a number of elements also with the Climate Commitment Act that really don't fit well for a municipal utility. One of those is that the law actually doesn't allow staff to communicate in an open public meeting about the strategies in investing in the allowance auctions. Nor does a state law allow us an exemption through the Open Public Meetings Act to present you that information in an executive session. So there are some minor and some probably significant requests we're making that would hopefully help the city comply in a more equitable manner with the Climate Commitment Act. And so we outlined those in your legislative agenda. The other primary item is one we just spoke about, and that is Fieldhouse funding. One of the items are when we set out to rebuild a facility, our goal was to rebuild in 2 years. We didn't know at the time that we would actually have about $2 million on the table of insurance settlements, that if we didn't start to rebuild that facility, we would lose out on that amount. And so this agreement that you passed in your last item will help us move that project forward. And what we're going to be working on now is breaking down the funding for the full $25 million into more bite-sized pieces. And so we believe that the full design, including what you approved tonight, is going to be in about $2.5 million total. Our site preparation costs are in the range of $2.5 to $2.6 million. And then we're looking at funding the first element, the first phase of construction, and asking the state for assistance with that. And so those are the primary requests and recommendations from staff and from past policy decisions for the council that we will ask. The additional elements that we have incorporated into the legislative priorities are similar to previous years about homelessness and affordable housing policies that relate to local controls over those, and also our infrastructure investments, funding for behavioral health, and additional fixes to some unfunded mandates through the Blake decisions. And our additional recommendation is that council support, publicly support the 2024 city AWC legislative priorities list, which are very much consistent with ours. And again, this gives staff, our elected officials, and our lobbyists support the marching orders to help advocate for these items. So our request tonight is that council approve the legislative priorities and to help us move forward.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this issue?
Jennifer Pattison. I just live in the county. I would suggest that for some of your use of your money that you have to spend, that you would clean up the existing abandoned site that was the former Rocket Center that I drive by every day. And it's been almost a year, and I have called several times, left messages. I've got great answers and great responses, but I don't know how much longer it's going to be. And then on your Climate Commitment Act, I would hope that you guys are looking to build more electric capacity within your city, because your ability to charge these aforementioned semi trucks and stuff with the ability that you currently even have out at the new Flying J, or the new exit one that they're putting in out there, where they only have 2 charging stations for 4 chargers total, because that's what they're allowed with the amount of power. So I just hope that you're all looking at some of that with some of the money that we're going to be having to ask from the higher powers.
Thank you. I'll just ask Heidi, the sale to ACX is pending.
It's pending, and the purchase and sale agreement was for ACX to actually do the property cleanup. Their reorganization in their international structure has delayed the signing of the documents and that for that property transfer. So they're getting closer. And so we continue to reach out on a very regular basis to move that forward.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else like to speak? Council, do you have any questions for staff?
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the 2024 City of Ellensburg legislative priorities.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the 2024 City of Ellensburg legislative priorities. Is there any further discussion? I appreciate the effort that went into creating those. All in favor?
Aye.
Two vote aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we are at the manager's report. And it feels like 10:30.
It does. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Heidi Berenstern, your city manager again. Just a reminder that there is a letter of support on the dais tonight. There was a timely issue for the Regional Fisheries Enhancement Group that the mayor signed, and we're providing notice of that to you all. Also solid waste, our waste management, through our franchise agreement with Waste Management, they can do periodic adjustments. And so there's another adjustment that's going into effect November 1st, 2023. And then we are in the final months of the year. And so it's budget season. And although we do a biennial budget, we do a mid-biennial adjustment. And so you'll have a public hearing coming to you at your next meeting. One of the other items on your agenda tonight was a community Thanksgiving, a reminder to the community that November 22nd is the community Thanksgiving meal. They had a lot of volunteers last year. I know we still need some volunteers, but also everyone is welcome. This is a free community meal and everyone is welcome. So tell your friends. And we will not have a coffee with council date scheduled for December, but if council, what I'm hearing is council is interested in continuing those. And so we will start rescheduling those for the first quarter of 2024 as well. And then one of the items, this has been a multi-year, multi-department effort, is finally coming to fruition, and that is a new utility billing system. Our staff have been working tirelessly for the last few months, especially the last few months, to get this off the ground. This will create some wonderful enhancements for our customers, more information about their bill use, more online options. So we're very excited about this. The turnover, the go live date is December 11th. And this next week, I just want to recognize staff are working to do a mock go live, and they're working all night long for much of the weekend to do this. And so a lot of what happens, a lot of folks do it behind the scenes, and so they go above and beyond. So we've got some wonderful staff, and this will be an amazing improvement for our community. So that is all I have for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Nguyen.
I had a few different meetings throughout the last couple of weeks. The most notable one was the lodging tax grant review process for our portion of it to send over to the county for their meeting on December 1st. We made our recommendations. We actually have to make another special meeting to go back over them for the financial side of it, to assign a dollar amount to them. They told us they didn't want that at first, and now they do want that. So we will be doing that hopefully within the next week to get that over to them for their December meeting. Other than that, I have nothing else.
Thank you. Councilmember Monica Miller.
I missed the finance meeting. Sorry.
We missed you.
Heidi and I attended the, what is that?
Chamber of Government Affairs.
Chamber Government Affairs lunch today, and Parks and Landmarks and Design are this week. Nothing to say, basically.
Okay.
Okay, so it's been busy. Not too many committee meetings, but lots of public events. So I attended on the 18th of last month, I attended the Reed Park Master Plan Open House, also known as Craig's Hill project. Had some good conversations with lots of folks. It was a really good turnout. I think we're getting some feedback on the comments. Through the conversations that I had and just my general observations, I followed up with staff, and I had a meeting on the 27th with our Parks and Rec director and our Public Works director and city manager, with some specific asks in terms of incorporating details into the conceptual design. And I'm seeing progress on that. So I'm anxious to see the next rendition. And I would just echo the comments made earlier. This is as everyone who's involved can tell, it's a very fluid process. I'm seeing a lot of, there was a opinion piece in one of the news outlets the other day, and it basically was reciting a lot of information that was probably accurate about 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago, not really up to date. So people are still assuming a lot of things that have kind of changed and continue to evolve. I know the people most heavily involved recognize that, and they're working hard to keep people informed. So anyway, enough on that. I attended the Finance Committee without the benefit of Councilmember Miller, which we got the briefing tonight. So again, we're really fortunate to have a top to bottom outstanding finance department staff, and I think we owe them a lot. I, along with other council members and the manager, attended a regional meeting in Cle Elum on the 26th with the Association of Washington Cities. Talked a lot about the legislative priorities and some of the issues that we were talking about earlier. Always good to meet with other communities. There were reps there from Cle Elum, from Granger, from Yakima, and a couple of others. And I just think it was a good chance for the folks in Olympia who represent us sort of to see what's happening in our neck of the woods. So like it when they come over here, we go over there, they come over here. It just seems like a long time ago, but last week I attended the groundbreaking out at the airport for the Fish Food Bank project, which is to expand their facility in their warehouse. And it was a great event, well attended. The city was extremely well represented from staff and several council members, but also I was so impressed with the commitment of our electeds at the state level for coming to town. We had all of our reps there, Representative Ybarra, Dent, and Senator Warnock. We had senior staff from both Representative Shire's office and Senator Murray's office. And to put it mildly, they know where Ellensburg is on the map, and they appreciate what we're doing and what's happening in our community. So I couldn't say enough great things about the way the Fish organization has pulled this project together. And I'm really anxious to see the next piece of that coming into place. And then the next day, which was also last week, I attended the postcard mural ribbon cutting, which is also very well attended. And again, if you haven't seen it, you should go by and look at it. It is really, I had the benefit of watching it come along because I walk by there almost daily, and it was really interesting to see it evolve. But to learn that it's really part of a bigger postcard mural program around the country, I think it will draw people to town just to see it, among other things. And then just today, I got an email from the Department of Commerce. I must be on their listserv or something, but they are now, they just released today a draft of model ordinances to address the missing middle on housing. And it's timely with our conversation tonight about housing, except I would point out that our conversation tonight about our surplus property is focusing on one segment of what we call the missing middle, but it's specifically income driven applicants. In other words, you have to qualify for a certain income. The definition of the missing middle throughout the state is much broader. And in fact, the projection is that in Washington, there will be a need for 1 million more homes in 20 years. And this is way beyond an income limit. This is affordability for everyone, teachers, cops, firefighters, everybody. And in the state, as we've heard, it's becoming more and more difficult to locate that kind of housing. So the interesting thing about the ordinance model, it's just out. Right now we're in what they call tier 3, which falls below populations of below 25,000. We'll be over that threshold pretty soon, but there's a tier 2 or 1 or 2 or whatever it is, which is the next increment up. It's all available. It's all public draft. I think the goal is to have it finished up, public input by December. And if you're interested, there's a little handy, I only printed the first page, but there's a user guide for middle housing ordinances, which is 80 pages. So I only printed page 1.
So that's voluntary, not.
It is voluntary. I think with the goal, Commerce's goal, as near as I can understand it, is they wanted to provide a model ordinance that local communities could use to develop their own ordinances. But it is below 25,000, as you've stated, is there's no requirement currently under the law. But I think we've talked about it's coming our way, and we want to be prepared for it. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Well, I've been fairly busy too. I've been at a lot of the same meetings that David was attended, the AWC regional meeting, the Reed Park open house. And today we had a homeless affordable housing committee meeting. I was also at the fish I've had AWC DEIB cabinet meeting since the last meeting, and a utility advisory committee meeting. So.
Rich.
Please vote if you have not already done so. The fire department is hosting a Veterans Day celebration at the station on Mountain View from 11:30 to 1:30. It is free. The firefighters and KVH employees pay for everything, so it's not paid for out of any tax dollars. And I spent the last 3 weeks traveling, mostly for work, and attended I have two observations. One, I went to Yosemite, Wildland and Fire Leadership Council. And we spent a day traveling through the Yosemite Park, looking at their prescribed fire and active land management process, which has been ongoing for 50 years in Yosemite Park, and in a state, California, that is highly regulated, where people seem opposed to, they can't agree on how to manage public lands. Yosemite is a shining example of how to do it right. Large fires impact that park almost yearly now, given the situation. And their fire management program basically stops the fires when it hits the park and protects the sequoias and, what is arguably one of the nicest places in the country. So that was actually kind of cool to see somebody succeeding in the face of where everybody else is not doing so well. We witnessed a 250 acre fire right below El Capitan on a day when the park was full and they didn't shut down any roads. They just burned it. And nobody complained about the smokes. So that was cool. Then I went to Washington, DC, and it did not go so well. I was lobbying for the Wildland Fire Commission report, which Senator Romney and Kelly commissioned, which was a look at how to fix the wildland fire problem in the U.S., which is exponentially growing and causing all sorts of issues, including affordable housing issues. And it's a comprehensive 148 recommendations to sort of address, and restore balance to the ecosystems. And it equally sort of makes both sides of the political spectrum mad. So it's probably a good plan. But I spent a couple of days lobbying between the House and Senate office buildings, mostly to staff, somewhat to the representatives and the senators. But Washington's a mess, and I don't want to go back ever. Just going to tell you that it did not make me feel really good about our republic. So I'll stick here. Local government.
Yeah. Sarah.
No, we don't even ask them.
And it will looks like it's maybe No Shave November too.
Yeah.
Okay, it's very good. So affordable housing, I don't even have to do a report because we had a study session on everything we've been working on. So that's been kind of the forefront. I had a fun couple of weeks because, as we all know, Halloween's my favorite. And so the downtown trick or treat was a huge success. Hats off to the EDA for such a successful event there. And then It was the first year for the flotilla out at Irene Reinhardt Park, and it was put on by the Parks and Rec, and then one of the school's robotics company programs, I think. I'm sorry that I don't remember which one, but it was very fun. I mean, there was a gentleman out in a kayak on that lake in the cold, pulling these pumpkins around. It was quite fun. And so I'm hoping that gets momentum every year. I also was lucky enough to get to go to the ribbon cutting for the postcard mural. And like David, I see it daily and the progress that's been happening there. It's been fun. So I just have a couple events that I want to just remind everybody about. Next, I guess a week from tomorrow, on the 14th, we have two pretty big things happening in town. One is Developmental Disabilities is putting on the Unseen, the preview for the Unseen documentary. This is about parents and caregivers for children and adults and their struggles and stuff like that. So it's going to be, they said to bring your tissue. And then they're going to have an open panel discussion after following that. So that's on, I think the doors open at 5 p.m. And then it's also the League of Women Voters is putting on the same night at 7. So you could hit both technically. There, and they will have a panel also, and Sarah, I get her pronunciation, Bledsoe. Bledsoe. Thank you. She will be probably the most active speaker at that about affordable housing and homelessness in our community. So that will be an interesting event as well. And that's what I have.
I've also been busy. On my committee assignments, the utility advisory and then the Luff Insurance Board. And Beth is sending out letters to recruit members for the new city commission. And we're kind of targeting starting in January, hopefully, with kind of joint but separate meetings. Nancy and I did coffee with council. And I thought it worked really well to do it with the Chamber of Commerce because they had a couple folks that participated in the discussions, and the Reed Park Master Planning Open House. Did the Nicholson Pavilion ribbon cutting, the fish groundbreaking, the Odd Fellows open house, and the Apoyo Fiesta Latina, and saw, in addition to, well, the fish, all three of our representatives, Warnick, Dent, and Ibarra were at the Odd Fellows, and Ibarra was also at the Apoyo. So they stayed all day Thursday in the community, and there was a sustainability committee meeting in which we amended a draft, which will now go to the Utility Advisory, the Environmental Commission, and the DEI for comments. The AWC in Cle Elum, and also a mayor's lunch in Kittitas. And we talked about some of the regional planning efforts and legislative priorities with the other mayors in Kittitas County. Habitat for Humanity Make a Difference Day. Last Saturday, I said a few words, but also had a chance to talk to the PSE government relations person and the charter person who sponsored that event. The Checkerboard Partnership group has an economic study for the Cle Elum Ridge acquisition that compares the impact to the county of different scenarios. So what happens if you lock it up in public land versus if you allow its maximum for residential development to the city, to the county taxes versus what they'd be obligated to spend on protecting those folks. The West Interchange group met, there's a flood mitigation study out at the West Interchange, and they they are eager to know how the analysis was to get more, there's some techniques that they want to use to get like 33 more acres of developable land out at the West Interchange. And what is kind of clear is the city and county are going to have to work together on kind of probably a sub-area plan to kind of move forward together to not just accomplish those goals, but to just, what do we want to see out there? And what they're proposing, is that acceptable? And I talked with Marla from Josie's Misfit Ranch, who described the sort of animal pet crisis, abandoned animal crisis. So they are looking with some of the other animal advocacy groups to kind of get a list of priorities of what they want to focus on to address those needs, like a spay and neuter clinics, or trying to recruit providers, because apparently there's a shortage of vets, educational pieces, and potentially ask for the city to expand the shelter facility. So we will be hearing more from them. And that's all I need to say. So is there anyone think of anything else? We're adjourned. Thank you. We accomplished a lot tonight.